Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. Today is Friday. We made it, right? So today is the 16th. So what are we going to talk about? Well, I thought it would be wrapping up the week on a number of questions that were asked in the comments, but hard to explain in the comments. So hang tight. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Friday, the 16th of January of 2026. So one of the questions was from Philip, and he was asking about whether to go with a 25-foot roll or a 50-foot roll of fuel line. And the honest truth, really, is depending upon how much work you're getting. On average, I would recommend to you guys that are just starting out, or you do it yourselfers or what have you, just go online and buy like 6 or 8 foot of each one. You don't need a 25-foot roll. That'll last quite a while. And a 50-foot roll will last a super long time. You were saying that you would go for the 50-foot if you could get the better deal. Yeah. But what I find is there's no sense in tying your money up into inventory that isn't moving very fast, right? So if you buy a 50-foot roll, you're tying up money that you probably could have used to buy some air filters or fuel filters, spark plugs. 25-foot roll for any shop is pretty good. I mean, because I know with my aftermarket companies, I can order it today and it'll be here tomorrow night on a weekday. Not on the weekends. They don't usually, UPS doesn't deliver to us. But on a weekday, Monday through Thursday, I will have it the next day, that evening, when UPS comes through. So, I mean, it's not like it's going to be a life or death that, oh my God, I lacked a foot of fuel line. I would rather see you kind of spread your wealth, your investment out over a number of things that are going to be fast moving for you. And that's going to be like 2 or 3 different spark plugs. It's going to be like 3 different oil filters, some fuel filters, a bag of 10. Those things are fast moving. The air filters are a hit or miss, depending upon if you know what you're seeing on a regular basis in your area. I mean, if you're a Cub Cadet dealer, then you know that you're going to stock Cub Cadet parts, right? In the air filters. And you know which ones are the popular models. So in that case, you would have them on the shelf, right? But if you're just a repair shop, and I shouldn't say just, but if you're like us, where you're a repair shop, but you do have a retail out front, I still don't stock a lot of them. I used to when we were selling a lot of them online, but not anymore. Because you end up tying your money up there instead of where it could be. And there's no sense in having a bunch of parts that end up being new old stock after 4 years sitting on the shelf because people aren't going to want or need them. You're going to find that the one that's a holdout that doesn't want to get rid of their machine that will eventually buy your part if it isn't manufactured in China, where there's comparable, where they'll do half of what you paid for it, right? So that's my response to that. You know, it's your shop, run it however you want. But if you're asking for my advice, I would go with shorter lengths of a fuel line. And I would want to get at least 5 of the top fuel lines because weed trimmers take a lot smaller line than the lawnmowers, right? So you aren't going to be able to buy one roll of fuel line and have it fit all. 1/4 inch does most of the lawnmowers, the riders. And then you start dropping down to 5/16 and it goes on. All right, so the next one, and Jason, if you could explain that, it would be really good, of having the throttle body open when you're doing a compression test. You know, I'm not questioning whether it's true or not. I'm just trying to figure out why that is. Because I'm somehow I'm lost of what does the throttle body have to do with the compression? And I'm really interested. I think it's very helpful. You've been a blessing to this channel. If you could explain that a little bit more today, no, whenever you get a chance. We talked about compression this week. We did a video on how to use a compression tester, when to use it. And for any of you guys listening that are do-it-yourselfers, or nights and weekends, make that your best friend. I'm telling you right now, you need to make that your best friend. Because if you don't, you're going to chase your tail until you finally come back and do it. And by doing it, it's going to tell you a lot of things. And if you don't have any experience, that's okay. That's what this channel is about. So if you're going to do a compression test, first off, get a decent compression tester. You can get them at Harbor Freight, everywhere else. And the one that we like, I showed you, is the one that has the 2 different size built right into it. You can thread it right in. On your name brand stuff, you want to be above 90. And what I have found is like with the Predators, the Champions, they run a lot lower PSI and still run. Why and how, I don't know. But we've gone around and around and around, Claude and I have, with Predators especially, with a compression tester on it, him adjusting the valves and me pulling it over to try to get it as high as we could get it. And like I think on the Predator was 62 was the highest we could get it. But it ran great at 62. Actually, we've had a lot of them run great at 50. If you took a Briggs & Stratton Kohler, Honda, the name brands, it's just not going to run. You may be able to get it to fire up the carb cleaner. And once it's running, it's fine, right? But to do that cold start. And that's why we recommend here on the channel that when you fix something, do a couple cold starts. And what is a cold start? Cold start is you fixed it today, everything is running great, leave it, and then tomorrow, try to start it. Be the customer. Is it starting hard? Is it starting easy? If you let it go too quickly and the customer takes it home and can't start it, it's a do-over. They're going to come back and say it's still not running right. So you try to do the best that you can, but by doing a couple cold starts on it, it's going to help your reputation in the long run. You're going to catch things that, maybe that fired right up with a carb cleaner, ran good, shut it off, started right back up again, perfect. But if you leave it and come back the following day and try that generator, crank on it and see if it'll start within a couple pulls. If not, you need to look a little further, because what you've done is you've warmed the piston walls up, and it'll restart quick when it's warm. Okay, what else we got that we tackled this week? Supplies for the shop. Okay, I did a video on the different parts containers that you can get right at Harbor Freight. TeamU's got them, wherever you can find it the cheapest, I guess is what I'm telling you. You're not going to use a lot of the things that I showed you, but you're going to use them. Grease fittings are probably the biggest one that we see, where the grease fitting is snapped off inside. So you got to take an easy out and tap it down in and then start turning it. And it's set up so that it grips on a reverse, so it's bringing it out. So swapping out grease fittings is pretty common here, the 90s and the straights. We use a lot of snap rings. It never fails. You go to undo a snap ring and the sucker shoots and it's like 30 yards away and you can't find it. So we keep a lot of those on hand. The other thing that I didn't mention that I think you should keep on hand is a few of the different shear bolts for snowblowers. Because we just had a beautiful Ariens come in. Actually, I sold this to one of our customers. And he wanted us, it was running rough and it wouldn't move, the drive on it. And when it came in, the augers never stopped. So we got that adjusted. And one of the springs on the tightener, on the pulley that tightens that belt, was overextended. So we just put a new spring on it and stuff. But one of the things that we caught was he had put in a regular, grade 5 bolt into the augers. And you don't want to do that. If you want to have an expensive fix, that's exactly what to do. But if you carry as a shop, couple of the most common ones in your area, and you can get them by the 5-packs, or eBay you can get them 2 at a time, but a 5-pack is fine. And I would cover whatever brands you're seeing, so that when a customer brings a machine in, or you bring it in for the customer, and you notice that the shear bolts are all gone, and you notice that they're using grade 5 in the auger system, take the grade 5 out, put a shear bolt in, and then you'll notice that on most of the snowblowers, up by the handles, there's a place for new shear bolts. Fill it up, bill the customer, but fill that shear bolt thing back up for them so that they aren't going to Tractor Supply and just grabbing any 5/16 bolt off from the shelf and throwing it on. I mean, because you could take a whole housing out with the shear bolts were there to design, where they were designed to help you, not hurt you. So I would recommend that you carry a 5-pack of like the 4 or 5 of the different ones, and you can get those right on eBay. If you're not a registered shop that are dealing with the aftermarket companies, you can do it right through eBay or Amazon. What else did we? Generators. Jason's right with moisture in the fuel or in the oil. You may be starting it every month for 5 to 10 minutes and then letting the carburetor shut the fuel off, let the carburetor burn out the fuel that's in it. But with those start stops, you're still getting the warm up, cool down, all right? In all honesty, I change the oil on ours every year. Whether it needs it or not, I drain it. But we burn the old oil anyways, so. And that just gives me a peace of mind. But as a shop owner, I have seen so many units come in that were of a white milky substance. And what ends up happening is you get hydraulic or engine oil and it mixes with water. It's going to make a milky mix. And it's slimy, okay? So if you start to see a little bit of a milkiness in your engine oil, drain it. Don't even dick around because you've got moisture into the oil and it will end up ruining your generator or any other piece of equipment that you have, even if it's got low hours on it. If you got water in the oil, it's got to go. Just simply drain it. What else did we do? I loved all the comments on the employee from hell. You guys played along perfectly. I did it just kind of a humor thing. But like you, Ed, I worked with a lot of really great people in my lifetime. And many of them shaped who I am today. And I looked up to them for leadership and for wisdom. And I learned early on, if I kept my mouth shut and my ears open, the old timers would take you in and teach you right. And that was really the saving grace when I worked as an underground miner. When I first went in, I was a green newbie, and it's a dangerous place. It's one of the most dangerous occupations you can have. I think the only one that's worse was farming. And I was farming and working as an underground miner. So I was really pushing my luck. But what I found was if I could just be quiet and listen and do it the way they told you to do it, that they were keeping you safe and out of harm's way from years of experience. Okay? And nothing can replace experience. And I had this one foreman when I first went underground. He just told me, he says, wet the pile down and scale it. And wetting the pile down was they had fired around the night before. And it's a great big mound of crushed rock, basically, from the explosion. You take a water hose and you wet it all down so that the loader man got a lot of dust in the headings, right? Keep the dust down. But you had to go in and scale it. It was a scaling bar with a tip, a metal tip with aluminum scaling bar. And you get in between any loose pieces on the sidewalls and the hanging so that it didn't fall and hit the loader guy or anyone else in that heading. And I had never scaled before in my life. Never. And he just showed me the scaling bars and where the water was and left me. And one of the old timers come along, and I was trying to scale from the pile to the face in the middle. And he pulled me aside and he said, Eric, you're doing it all wrong. Why aren't you here with someone experienced? I said, well, the boss just dropped me off, told me to scale it and everything. So he said, well, I got a few minutes. So he showed me how to work my way on the sidewalls, get to the face, and then work your way out, where most of the cracks that you're going to see are from the face where the explosion stopped back out. So, and with wetting everything down, the sidewalls and the hanging, it showed the crevices where it was loose and you could get into it and pinch and pry. Where am I going with this? That I watched years later of guys come in and be know-it-alls, and those old-timers would not help them one iota. You know, it's just like you're going to end in disaster, and if you think you know more than they do, knock yourself out. So I was lucky in that I could keep my mouth shut and my ears open and listen and do what they told me to do. So that's how I'm going to wrap up this week. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you had a good week and you made tons of money, or at least you're still upright and breathing, right? To live another day. So on that note, you guys have a great Friday. We'll be here back bright and early Monday morning for the weekday. And we'll see what this weekend brings. I got a snowblower coming in tomorrow morning that I got to check in and see what's going on with that. But other than that, it's pretty quiet. We have to deliver a tractor this morning that we finished up. And we ended up getting 2 tractors done this week. And we got a wood splitter in yesterday, a Honda. It's missing parts. Came in a box. Love it, right? Claude is just like, he's trying to do like a puzzle, putting everything back together and figuring out where everything went on a small 5.5 Honda. I think it's 5.5. On that note, you guys have a great weekend.